Hey, what's up? So I wanted to make this video to kind of just show how excited I am. I actually, for the very first time, just made Grandmaster. I did this in Unlimited. As you can see, I just now got this Grandmaster sleeve and some emblems and stuff like that. So that's all really, really cool. I'm really happy and proud to be able to do this. Uh, just so you guys know, I'm more of a casual player. So, the fact that I was actually able to do this as a casual feels really, really good. So, in celebration of me making Grandmaster for the first time ever, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight the four decks that I played in Unlimited that gave me at least a 10 game winning streak. Because it took me a long time to do this, and I wasn't really super duper aggressively trying to get Grandmaster. It was just only recently when I just started noticing a very high win rate because of some new stuff that came out. And you'll see once I show this off. But yeah, I'm really happy, really proud of myself. Like I said, this is something that I've never done. I've been playing the game for about 6-ish years. So, it's one of those things that it's kind of a big accomplishment for me. So let's just kind of go over just the top four decks that I play, because there's only four decks that I played in the past that's given me a 10 plus game win streak. And I want to start from like the beginning decks to like the decks I'm playing now. So the first deck that I ever got a 10 game winning streak in Unlimited specifically was City of Gold. Now, I actually did make a video in my Shadowverse versus music section and me playing this deck specifically against, I think it was like Spell Boost, which at the time, and even now, is like a really top tier deck. This is the list that I was playing at that time. I basically recreated this deck. So now, at the time of that recording, this card was nerfed. So I do need to make that clear. This card was actually nerfed. Because I think what it ended up doing was they nerfed quite a few cards here and there, and this was made to where like it would cost 1 instead of 0. So at the time of me actually getting a 10 game win streak, it was actually nerfed to cost 1. And this is just the rest of the deck. The main point of the deck was just to play amulets that gave you storm creep characters, and then you had cards that drew to kind of help refill your hand so you can continue to do that, and some removal against Wrath Blood and stuff like that. And then of course you had this as a storm card. Every time an amulet dies, you subtract the cost. So if you got that early, that's going to be good for you. More storm. And then this was a pretty cool tech card to basically give me more damage. So something with storm comes into play this and it gets +1, so you hit it for more damage. It was basically like a Faces of Place kind of deck, and it was very, very successful. The only reason I stopped playing this deck is that they eventually nerfed City of Gold. Because what ended up happening was, and they nerfed this card because of rotation, unfortunately. They made it to where the invocation cost ended up being 3 instead of 2. And it literally destroyed the deck. It was like, in order for the deck to actually be consistent, you had to have this like turn 2. If you had to wait a turn for some reason, it made a big difference. So that's why I eventually stopped playing the deck. Now I've tried playing it a little bit recently. It's nowhere near as good as it used to be. Now granted, this is an outdated list. There are probably other cards I could probably put in this deck to make it better and maybe viable in this format, but with the OTKs being like turn 4 or sometimes turn 5, it would be very, very difficult for this deck to make it, but maybe it's doable. The second deck that I played that gave me more of a winning streak was Jateland. So the point of this deck was to basically play cheap artifacts, and again, at the time this card was still nerfed to be costing 1. But basically, you played this guy when you had at least 7 amulets destroyed, so that you could banish what was in play, deal some damage, and gain some life. Now, technically, you could wait Kind of depends on the matchup when you want to play this guy. I honestly would prefer to wait until I have 10 amulets destroyed. But if you're playing against a deck that can OTK, you want to play this, when you have 7 destroyed so that you can at least get your protection amulet out, but still, banish what they have in play. Also, if you're playing against Wrathblood, you want this out as soon as possible at 7 destroys so that you can banish their followers and gain some life, because Wrathblood is going to basically annihilate you. Now, don't get me wrong, Wrathblood can beat you before you can even play this, but the whole goal is just to get this guy out and basically do lots of damage and gain life. Now, I think at the time I got the win streak, I think this card was nerfed as well, because what they eventually did, and again, it was because of standard. I'm sorry, rotation. I'm sorry, I used to play Magic the Gathering, so I'm saying standard instead of rotation. But in rotation, I guess this deck was running amok, and they nerfed it to where I think the max you can get was, I want to say the max you can get was when you destroyed 7 amulets instead of more. I might be wrong on that, but I think they nerfed it like hardcore. But thankfully, they recently unnerfed it. But at the time that I got the win streak, it was actually nerfed. So that's how strong this deck was, even at that time. And then, of course, you would just play cards that were amulets. Now, at the time, I think this wasn't out yet. So this might not have been in that list. This is the updated list that I'm playing now. Because I've tried it recently, it's kind of iffy, but I have tried playing this now, and it's okay. You just have to get lucky, is what it boils down to. But I wouldn't recommend it 100%. But like I said, I did get a win streak in the past with this, and I was definitely proud of that. This third deck that I got a 10-game winning streak on or more was Resonance. This is one of the more recent decks. I started playing this deck because they unnerfed Yuan and then released this card, which could basically put Yuan in your hand. And the whole idea of the deck is to play a bunch of 1-cost cards that draw cards, which basically gives you Resonance. Now, this card gives you basically Resonance by itself. Because it basically, all these cards will give you Resonance when you play it, because you play it, you put something in your deck, and then eventually you draw. So all of these 1-cost spells give you a Resonance count of 1. Really, really good stuff. And then you played this as a way to kind of chip damage so that you could get your win condition easier. This I played more or less to make copies of Yuan. And then this is another card that was recently released that will help your Resonance count. And then basically this guy is your main win condition. So that's kind of how the deck goes. This and this was my protection against OTKs. However, you have to draw them, right? So, that's kind of where that comes into play. But it was a very consistent deck. Unfortunately, when Soul Taker got their buff, this deck became non-existent. Like that, the Soul Taker destroys this deck 100%, which is why I stopped playing this deck, because Soul Taker was everywhere at the time. But that was basically the part of it. Oh, and you ran Magna Zero mainly because it is a good win condition. Even with just doing 10 damage, it's usually enough to win the game. So that's kind of why this is in there. This is kind of the finisher if you're not able to win early enough. And the last deck that I played, and the most recent one, is the Despair Reborn deck. So in this particular deck, the whole point is to play cards that discard cards from your hand, and you want to discard dragons that have Storm, or just cards that have Storm, really. Typically, I want to discard cards that have at least 7 power, but some of these are good for different reasons. So you discard with this, and this. These are good options for discard. And then these other cards you see, like this is good against wards because you can basically ignore ward. This is good against basically ward or just anyone with creatures in general, because you can play them. It's not only can you get rid of the creature, but you can also deal damage at the same time. So it still kind of helps you out. But the main win condition is this cards, because of unlimited. Whenever you're able to evolve, it costs 4, and then you just basically discard 2 cards and you summon up to 4 cards that were discarded. It is random, so you kind of have to be careful with what you discard, because you could end up accidentally discarding this, which is like the worst thing to discard, and then it gets summoned, and then that's damage you're not dealing. And that's kind of the same with this. You don't want this discarded because it has rush, so it literally deals no damage. So sometimes you can get unlucky and accidentally, like let's say it's the turn that you're about to, play the spell, but then you end up drawing on that play this card or this card. There's a chance that this could get discarded because of the spell, and then all of a sudden, you have a card that's not going to do any damage and basically potentially lose you the game if you're severely unlucky. So, this deck is kind of a luck deck, but it does have a lot of consistency, which is why it's very popular. And there are many classes that actually play Despair Reborn. It's not just Dragon. Runecraft also has a Despair Reborn deck where if they play it with the right followers, they can OTK you by just constantly casting spells and dealing damage. It's actually pretty consistent. And I think there's another class that does it as well, but I think Runecraft is the class that I see play it the most. Oh, Dragon number 1, Runecraft probably number 2. Oh, and then Sword would probably be number 3, because Sword also plays Despair Reborn as well. They basically play a bunch of wards and then play Despair Reborn, get out certain cards that'll basically, shield themselves, and then just kill you the next turn if you don't have an answer. So there's a lot of this deck going around because of this card, but it is very consistent, despite the fact that it's kind of like basically a lottery you're playing. But it does do well. And then I played this mainly because one, it has Storm, but the number one reason is Wrathblood is still really, really a tough matchup. So just accelerating this card to deal damage will get rid of some of the aggression. You want that, and of course you want this to do 3 damage to something as well to deal with the aggression. But yeah, those are the 4 decks that I played that had at least a 10-game winning streak, and this, for an unlimited, that's helped me to get where I am today. And this is the deck itself that pushed me to Grandmaster in the very end. But yeah, this is more just kind of like a congratulations to me kind of video, because again, I'm more of a casual. I kind of just have fun, but just the fact that I was actually able to do this for the first time ever is just a proud moment for me, and I kind of just wanted to share this with everybody. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and take care, everyone.